Let's get an instant audit on it this morning. Mark Lloyd is with us, president and founder of the Lloyd Group. Mark joins us from Atlanta, Georgia. What do you make of John Thane coming back into the fold here at CIT?
I think it's a great move for CIT. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, he's a pedigree. I was a little nervous about it when I first heard about it, just because of the baggage that he's leaving behind with Merrill Lynch. But you know, everybody gets a chance. You know, should have a second chance and redemption, and maybe this is his time right now.
Yeah,
he has to prove himself, though.
Well, you go through what he did PR-wise at Merrill Lynch, whether it was the billions of dollars in bonuses, the office being remodeled, and all the stuff that got thrown around after that happened. How do you is it important for him to kind of rebuild and from a PR standpoint, or just go in and run the business day to day?
Well, I think it comes hand in hand. I mean, if he runs the business day to day and he does a good job and turns that company around, then all of that will work itself out. You know, the board of directors, they're taking a chance with him, and I think there was a little bit of hesitation there with some of the board members. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, I mean, he's got the the pedigree to get the job done, and he's got to produce because they're giving him some big bucks.
This firm, as we know, all but went out of business there a few months ago. It's hanging on. What about the future for CIT in terms of, because it's an important firm in the role that it plays, lending to small and medium-sized businesses?
Well, that's the topic of the day. I mean, when it all comes down to it, small businesses are operating our economy, right, and future jobs come from small businesses. So, we've got to be able to lend money to small businesses in order for us to be able to hire people to really turn this economy around and get the jobs, going.
See if Mr. Thane can do it. Mark Lloyd, we'll have more from you later on in the hour. Thanks for joining us early this morning from Atlanta. Ashley, back. Now, we have an instant audit, Ashley, on it this morning from Mark Lloyd, who's our guest in Atlanta, the president and founder of the Lloyd Group. One thing Geithner is right about, if you look at the markets last week, is that there's still a safe haven component to the United States. Money did rush into treasuries when there was worries about what was happening in Europe and what have you. But what about the fairly definitive statement there that the AAA credit rating of the United States will never be at risk?
I sure hope he's right. I mean, this would be catastrophic for us if something happened. I know that for Moody's to even say that tells you that we're spending too much money. We need to cut back on spending, government spending, and we need to take control of this budget deficit. And I'm scared that they're going to raise taxes in order to do this.
Don't they?
And that's going to slow the economy. I don't believe so. I think what we need to do is have some tax cuts.
Right.
So
well,
that we
maybe
can
short term,
afford
but I'll tell you
small
what, I mean, it's so obvious what's going to come out of that deficit commission. I mean, I know they're going to run through the motions of it, but anybody could tell you what they're going to say at the end of it. They're going to say you need to raise taxes and cut spending because the deficit is huge, and that's the only way to cut it down. And Republicans will come out and say, oh, we don't want tax hikes, and Democrats will be like, well, we can't cut spending on the entitlement programs. Well, guess what? You have to, otherwise the country at some point goes bankrupt. I mean, it seems simple. I mean, if you take the politics out of it, I mean, I don't understand why that's not the answer. You over time, when the economy improves, raise taxes and also cut spending. We
would have more revenues if we have our unemployment under wraps.
Right.
And that's going to come from small businesses, like we said earlier, and that's going to come through tax incentives, not through tax hikes.
Right, but
I
that's
know
a
as a small business owner, I can't afford to hire more people right now.
That's a
but
short-term
I really do need
fix,
one
right?
or two.
You need to boost the economy in the short term, so you keep taxes low. The president has talked about this. It's not a time to be hiking taxes, say, this year. You got to keep cutting taxes now or providing tax incentives, and also keep spending. But then a year or 2 or 3 years down the line, you have to do the opposite on both fronts. Otherwise we run out of money.
But you have the fox guarding the hen house.
Right.
They can't control themselves in Congress from spending, and they have to put a lid on this.
Especially the entitlement spending, right? I mean, you have to do something about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, because that's something like, out of 40-some-odd trillion, 20-some-odd trillion is that. I mean, it's just, again, to go back to the question, I mean, it seems like an obvious answer. What do? Raise the retirement age? I mean, most people that are sensible would think about those fixes down the line, and it doesn't seem like they're even on the table right now.
Well, let's talk about earmarks too, though. I mean, there's still a lot of government spending in earmarks, and again, I know that they're trying to make some positive steps in Congress right now to pass some legislation to curb that and to stop that, and I think that needs to be done. Back in the Clinton days when this was happening and we were, runaway government spending, we did in fact do some things to curb it, and that needs to happen here. Talk is cheap. Action needs to take place.
What about the economy short term? How do you feel about it? You said you're a small business owner. I mean, you think things are turning around now? Because that's really the difference. It's a short-term question of stimulus or tax cuts, and it's a longer-term question about deficits. But what about now in the economy with just under 10% unemployment?
Connell, I really don't know if it's turning around as fast as everybody's saying it is, and the reason why I say that is because I have a lot of seniors and retirees that are my clients, and they call in a lot asking for money from their accounts, but it's not for them. It's for their unemployed children.
Oh, yeah.
And we're seeing children with six-figure incomes now unemployed, and mom and dad are helping them out. And the bottom line is when they do get back into the workplace, they don't have that six-figure income anymore. There's less tax revenues coming in.
That's a very good point, and kind of a sad commentary on the last couple of years, I guess. All right, Mark Lloyd, thanks a lot from the Lloyd Group in Atlanta. We'll be back to you one more time before the hour is out. But now let's. Mark Lloyd is still with us out of Atlanta, president of the Lloyd Group. Mark was pointing out in the last section how he operates a small business, so you'd be a good person to talk to about that. And before we get into those specifics, do you care about the fact that they're allowing the cameras in? Is that a good or a bad thing in your mind?
Hey, it's great. Full transparency. It was promised all along. They never delivered on it. This is great. This is a good first step. Why are they doing this first step?
Right.
Because of Scott Brown being elected.
Yeah, I wonder.
Plain and simple. Healthcare died when he was elected if they don't do this.
Yeah, right. And also make some changes to the Senate bill, you would think, and not just try to push it through as is. The president says Republican ideas will be on the table. I don't know what he's specifically referring to there, whether it's tort reform or selling across state lines, whatever the case may be. Again, from your perspective, small business owner in Atlanta, what would you like to see?
Well, first of all, I pay 100% for all of my health care insurance premiums for my employees. It's just something that I feel is important to do. Now, what I'm concerned about as a small business owner is this, hiking these taxes, this Cadillac tax and all of that. I can tell you, because I am licensed in the insurance industry and health insurance specifically, there's a chance that, all these premiums are going to be jacked up because of this, and that's going to hurt us as small business owners. And the worst thing I could do is pass on that expense to my employees, because honestly, they're living on fixed budgets and fixed incomes, and I just don't want to do that.
The idea of the job situation in the country being held back, many have speculated, it's hard to tell in the numbers whether it's true or not, but many have speculated it's because small business owners like you are reluctant to hire now because they don't know what's going to happen. Any truth to that from your point of view and how you see your business for the rest of the year?
Absolutely. You're 110% right. I could use some more staff, but I am holding back because of future tax hikes, future not just on the federal level, but we're being squeezed left and right down here just on city taxes and county taxes and property taxes. I mean, it's just not the federal government, it's across the board. So yes, we have to be very, very cautious and move slowly, and again, that's just slowing down our recovery.
So if there's one thing you could suggest, and again, this whole thing is going to be live on television, the president meeting with the Republican leadership and the Democratic leadership trying to come up with some sort of a fix for Congress. There's one thing you could suggest that be added that doesn't seem to be in the mix right now. What is it?
Oh, absolutely. I got the answer to this.
Oh, great.
Because, again, I deal with a lot of soon-to-be retired and retirees that are in that 60 to 64 bracket. They're not quite there on Medicare yet. So this is the worst age bracket for health insurance. It's the highest premiums. The underwriting is tough, so if they have any pre-existing conditions, they can't get the coverage. They're sitting there exposed with no health coverage. We have got to do something to allow some guaranteed issue insurance for people with pre-existing conditions.
So you would fund
that is critical.
The pre-existing, that's in the mix already, though. That seems to be, everybody agrees on that.
But it needs to be some way where it's affordable.
Right.
Because if the premiums are coming in at $1,000, $1,500 a month, they're not going to be able to afford to have it.
Right.
Again, a lot of people are living from paycheck to paycheck, and it's got to be affordable.
Yeah. Okay, Mark. Thank you very much. Mark Lloyd will be back at our web show in the next hour. And speaking of which.